Earlier this month, I went on the great adventure of climbing Mount Wilhelm, the tallest mountain in Papua New Guinea and arguably the tallest mountain in all of Oceania. At over 4,500 meters, or almost 15,000 feet, it is taller than anything in the lower 48 of the United States. I went with 4 of my dear friends and co-missionaries, Taylor, Lucas, Brian, and Daniel, as well as our PNG friend, Appa. The adventure started even before we got to base camp, as the 4-hour drive from Kujip to the base of Mount Wilhelm was an adventure in and of itself. I think my favorite quote from the drive is when our fearless driver, Taylor, came up to a bridge and said, "I sure see a lot of light coming through that bridge." We navigated perilous mountain roads, rickety bridges, drove through rivers, and went through car-swallowing ruts. I don't think any vehicle besides a rugged Land Cruiser in low 4 would have been able to make the journey. How do you guys feel back there?
Pretty smooth.
Pretty smooth.
Yeah, not bad right now.
We eventually arrived at Betty's Lodge, and we started a 3-hour hike from there up to base camp, which was essentially straight up. At one point, we came out of the jungle and went into this valley that we all called Jurassic Valley, because in this valley there were giant ferns and this eerie fog, and it looked like the perfect place for hungry velociraptors or soaring pteranodons. After going through Jurassic Valley, we went over a couple of ledges and then finally saw base camp, where there was a rustic A-frame shelter and this beautiful, majestic mountain lake ensconced in these rugged, soaring peaks. The water was a bit frigid, just like home back in Minnesota, and we couldn't resist diving in for a dip.
There it is! Woo!
We cooked dinner over the fire, had a few hours of sleep, and then woke up at 2 a.m. to start our summit attempt of Mount Wilhelm. It is 2:15 and we are about to start our summit attempt of Mount Wilhelm. A little cold, but the sky is clear. There is just an incredible amount of beautiful stars out. So, feel good. I'm excited. The first 4 hours of the hike were all in the dark, as we wanted to get up there when the skies were most likely to be clear and to avoid the rain and weather that usually comes later in the day.
I feel like $1 million. I feel like $1 million bucks.
You feel like $1 million? Half spent.
That's still pretty good.
Yeah, well.
On the journey, I felt really good physically, and the effects of altitude were noticeable, but not too bad. But what I didn't expect is that I was actually a lot more nervous of the heights than I thought I would be. There's something about climbing along these wet rocks, especially at night, with perilous, enormous drop-offs on both sides that got my heart racing and made me quite nervous. I think psychologically, I was more nervous of the altitude, more nervous of the heights and peaks than most of the people in the rest of our group. So I'm going to show, this is where we've been. We're up here now, but let me turn it around. At ridgeline, all through there, started down by the lake. Top of the world. Pretty crazy. In theory, we're about to see our first glimpse of Mount Wilhelm when we go around the side of the ledge here. Never have such a spry group come up a mountain. This is where some bones lie of someone who was not quite so fortunate going up Wilhelm. That is the top up there. Almost to the top, but have to go through there to get to the top. We made it. Here's the proof in case I don't make it back alive. How do you guys feel?
Woo, winded.
Happy to be here?
Great. Yeah.
By God's grace, we made it to the top, and more importantly, made it back down. The journey was majestic, beautiful, rugged, perfectly emblematic of this country that we've lived in for the last year and a half. And summiting Mount Wilhelm has certainly been one of my highlights of our time being here. All right, guys, you made it. Now we just get to eat. What do you think about that?
I think that's a great idea.
Now time blow kai kai. All right. One of the last nights as we sat around the campfire, Taylor read a liturgy from the book Every Moment Holy. And the refrain from that liturgy has been going through my mind again and again. Restore us to our truer, wilder stories, O God. I pray that you find yourself wrapped up in the wild story that God has for you. God bless.
That we who were born into journey and exile should sometimes venture from our homes and beds, pitching tents and making camp in wild places. How fitting to be reminded of our state as pilgrims, whose transient homes of brick and wood and stone the light of those eternal dwellings for which we long, are no more substantial than the wind-rippled canvas of the tents in which we sleep. Restore us to our truer, wilder stories, O God. In this wilderness, may our hearts be shed of the insulating layers of daily routines, of the duties and comforts that distract and lull us, of the numbing surplus of our possessions. Here let us feel ourselves more vulnerable and in awe, silhouetted against the backdrop of your beauty and holiness, small beneath towering trees and wide skies, small but known. Restore us to our truer, wilder stories, O God. May we find grace in the wilderness. May we find grace in the heart of the wood, in the space of the fields, in the rising of rocks, in the rushing of streams, in the painterly dabs of wild flowers, in the windswept bending of wild grasses. Here, stir our hearts to remember that grace is ever a wild thing, that laws and progress cannot tame. May we chase your manifold mercies over ragged hills, pursue your song through the sparse and layered lyric of sculpted deserts, marvel at your mystery fixed in the wheeling designs of stars overhead. May we hear it in the coos and calls of owls and small creatures that fidget in the night, trace it in the leaping dance of campfire flames, and sense it in the sweet incense of pine and leaf meal. Restore us to our truer, wilder stories, O God. In this place may we breathe your quickening breath, sleeping in tents tonight, awash in this glorious ache, sojourners stirred afresh by distant rumors of the return of their King. May we wake at the soft pulse of dawn to find in the wild and whispery winds of your spirit our pilgrim hearts ringing like chimes. Fill these wilds, O Lord, that in your presence we might be present.